Seja o primeiro a conhecer o novo navio da Royal Caribbean, Star of the Seas, partindo de Port Canaveral, pertinho de Orlando em 2025. Experimente 40 restaurantes. Aproveite entretenimento ilimitado. Vivencie emoções épicas nos toboáguas e até mesmo desafios nas alturas. E nossa ilha particular, Perfect Diet Kokokai, está repleta de aventuras para a família, como tirolesas, piscinas de ondas e cabanas.
The next icon of vacations.
Acesse royalcaribbean.com/bra. Aplicam-se termos e condições.
A Liberty Seguros agora é Yellow. Tudo aquilo que já era bom continua igual. Excelência e proximidade permanecem como nossa essência. Porque não é uma mudança, é uma evolução. A Yellow está sempre em sintonia com você. É liberdade com segurança. A melhor experiência acessível a todos os clientes, iluminando cada passo da sua jornada. Deixe essa luz iluminar seu caminho. Yellow Seguradora. Seguro para viver livre. Consulte seu corretor.
Welcome back to another episode of Investies. I'm your host, Linda Garcia. This week on the podcast, we are going to discuss how the presidential election is impacting the stock market. I am recording this on Wednesday, November 6th, the day after the elections. I was expecting for the presidential race to be a lot tighter. I definitely was not expecting to have results the next morning. I do have to say that I was in a vacuum for sure, 1000%. That is obvious by the way things have gone down overnight. I first want to address the stock market's historical prediction of a presidential election. The rules of this prediction are if the stock market is increased 3 months prior to the election, then the reins are not going to change. It will remain in the same party. If the stock market goes negative 3 months prior to the election, then we will have a transition. I need to clarify that it is not that the stock market didn't make a prediction because it did. I just didn't read it correctly. I was going by old rules, and the fact is that the stock market was indeed predicting the outcome, which is that Trump would be the next president. I know that because today, Wednesday morning, the stock market has reached new all-time highs for all three indexes, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and the Dow Jones. The market is saying, I told you so. If the market had not have been predicting this outcome, then we would have seen a bloody day today, and that is not what we saw. So let me talk to you about what I think happened. On July 15th, we reached a new all-time high in the S&P 500. Shortly after reaching that new all-time high, we did start to see a pullback, which is no surprise. When we have all-time highs, we typically tend to see a pullback in the market. Now, we need to remember what was taking place during this time. At this time, we were hearing from elected officials, we were hearing rumors that President Joe Biden was going to resign and that there would be another Democratic candidate. The same day that the stock market reached a new all-time high, the Republican National Convention was taking place, Monday, July 15th. For an entire year in 2023, I was certain that there was no way that President Joe Biden would get reelected. As we moved into 2024, I felt even more certain of it. And when I watched the Republican National Convention, that was it. There was no pathway, and I was certain of it. I could feel it in my bones. We have a plot twist. President Biden steps down, swiftly backs Vice President Harris for the Democratic nomination. This takes place on July 21st. And immediately the stock market has a negative reaction. The S&P 500 almost enters correction territory, dropping 8.5%. The NASDAQ drops into correction territory. And on the episode of that week, I shared, could this be the stock market predicting that we will have a transfer of power and that Vice President Harris does not have a chance and that Trump will be the winner? I immediately let go of any possibility because I was swept away by excitement, a shift in energy. I was invigorated, and I was sold on the possibility of having the very first Black female president. The S&P 500 increased 2.59% just today alone. We still have 3 more hours until the market closes. Since yesterday, the S&P has increased 3.6%. So as of yesterday, it was already doubling down on its confirmation and its prediction. The Dow Jones, which climbs relatively slow, has increased 3.5% just today alone. Since yesterday, it has increased 4.3%. The NASDAQ today alone has increased 2.9%. Since yesterday, we're looking at a 4.2% increase. Just as of this morning, my portfolio is up $13,000. So just a few hours in the market, and those are the types of gains that I'm seeing in my portfolio. It's pretty gnarly to watch that take place.
Quer desenvolver os talentos da sua equipe e potencializar os resultados da sua empresa? Conte com a expertise do atendimento corporativo do Senac São Paulo, que já capacitou mais de 1 milhão de pessoas e profissionais de instituições públicas, privadas e terceiro setor. Construa uma equipe altamente motivada e capacitada e destaque-se no mercado. Entre em contato, acesse sp.senac.br/corporativo e saiba mais. Quer saber? Senac.
Aqui no Spotify, muitas playlists são criadas através de inteligência artificial. A IA está em todo lugar, mas nem todo IA é igual. Desbloqueie experiências de IA mais inteligentes, fáceis de expandir e personalizadas para sua vida e seus negócios com os computadores Lenovo e processadores Intel Core Ultra, que transformam a sua experiência tecnológica. Acesse lenovo.com/smarter. Lenovo, inteligência artificial mais inteligente para todos.
The number one concern that Americans have across the board, we saw it in surveys, I personally saw it while I was door knocking, was the economy. Economy. And what people are really saying is that they are concerned about inflation. Middle class is concerned about having extremely high interest rates that is crushing them with their credit cards, interest rates that is keeping them from upgrading their home or getting into a new home for the first time. For our lower income communities, they are concerned with the price of gas, with the price of food, with the price of rent. Unfortunately, most of us have no knowledge or understanding on how to take control of our finances. The reality is that wealthy people thrive in a bad economic environment and in a great economic environment. In fact, we can argue that the most growth actually takes place in a bad economic environment. This is where we have opportunities. But because most of us do not understand how to manage and grow money, these are not things that we are taught. We have no idea how to navigate those hard times. So while a lot of folks were struggling during the Biden administration, there were also folks that were thriving during the Biden administration. We're going to take a look at the stock market and how much it grew during his administration. We're going to be very fair in that we are going to take it back all the way to when the market predicted that he would become president up until the peak on July 15th, where the market took a downturn and it predicted that Trump would become president. The growth of the last 3 months Is Trump's growth? I'm not going to add that in the same way that I am going to add the growth prior to President Biden actually taking office, where the market was predicting that President Biden would win and took a leg up in the same way that we saw these last 3 months. So the S&P 500 grew 70% during the Biden administration. It's also really important for me to note that during his administration, we had a market crash, a pretty severe market crash. 70% increase with the S&P 500, 68% increase with the NASDAQ, and 59% increase with the Dow. Keeping in mind that because there was a crash there in 2021, we had an opportunity to buy stocks at cheaper prices and benefiting from the growth that took place after that crash. The Republican Party has always ran on economic issues, and the Democratic Party has always ran on social issues. What has become extremely apparent to me in this specific election is how much the economy is used by Republicans to manipulate this grandiose idea that the president can solve all of our economic issues. Only we can solve our economic issues in our household. That's not to say that we can't benefit from some monetary policies. However, I live in a Republican state where the minimum wage is $7, and it has been $7 since 2009. And so if Republicans were truly interested in the economic well-being, then they would have already increased the minimum wage to a living wage. The hypocrisy in all of this is what I can't move through. It is what I struggle with the most. We have a party that deems themselves Christian conservatives, and the person that they have chosen is a man that will simulate oral sex on a microphone, acting as if it was a penis. Like this is it. This is really who you chose, on top of all of the horrifying rhetoric that continues to spew out of his mouth. It's really just embarrassing, honestly, for the United States of America. And to think that most people are claiming that the reason they voted for him is because they want to see the economy improve. What they don't understand and what they should believe is when Elon Musk said that we need to feel pain as a country. What he's saying is that the economy needs to crash. Why would it need to crash? So that wealthy people can have opportunities to buy into the market and invest at a lower price. On the flip side of all of this, I think that it is really hard to trust Democrats on economic issues because we have consistently run campaigns on social issues. So I think that that is a massive problem and a disservice. For me, it is always extremely apparent when I'm watching the Democratic Party talk about economic issues and their ideas on how to solve these issues. I can see that there is little understanding on the implications that come from their ideas. I also have to say that I could feel and sense Vice President's loss in confidence when it came to topics pertaining to the economy. I do appreciate that she did seek out business leaders to help counsel her through the process. I also want to highlight what she did in 100 days, going from the mental perspective that you are running as vice president, and then all of a sudden pivoting to the helm and having to come up with your own ideas and communicate those ideas when you don't even have them fully flushed, I think is extremely difficult to do. And so there wasn't enough time for her, but I think she did the absolute best she could have done with the time that she had. And so I think it's important to definitely commend her for that. Here we are with the outcome that we have. I think that there was some beautiful momentum that was created in the last 100 days. I really strongly believe that it's going to be our responsibility to continue this momentum and continue the unification that we've seen with the Democratic Party. Obviously, there's still so much more unification that needs to take place. This episode, I just want it to serve as a reminder that it does not matter who the president is of the United States. There will always be opportunities for us to grow economically. Now, when it comes to everything else, I realize that we have strong beliefs on what a leader should look like, what a leader should sound like, how they should respect humanity, most importantly, the citizens of its country. Well, when it comes to that, I honestly have nothing for us. I truly don't. This is a podcast on investing, and so I wanted to make sure that I addressed issues pertaining to that topic. When it comes to all the other things, I'm at a loss. You're listening to Investies, a Cosmic Standard and an In Luz We Trust production. Special thank you to the team, Asia Simpson, Eliza Smith, and Jacob Winnick.